they're just very confused, um, and that's the hard part about coaching is when you don't have a good explanation for young people. And I think from my standpoint, it's just you got to understand there's a process to this. All they hear is denial, and they don't understand because they felt like there were guidelines laid out very clearly to them and standards to those guidelines. It's very clear to them and to anybody around them that they meet those guidelines. So when they hear the word denial, it scares them and it confuses them. And I think it's been a very difficult 4 or 5 days. And I think we talk about the importance of mental health. I'm so proud of our department. I mean, look at the things that John Cunningham has done with our department. Lanisha Nichols, we've added positions. But these types of things, where they affect young people in a real negative way.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessary. So I think they're confused. I think they're hurt. I think they're trying to understand, why this is the predicament they're in based on the things that were laid out to them.
Yeah, do you have any idea of how long the appeal process could take, or is it kind of like the initial waiver process?
So the appeals have to be submitted by Friday.
Okay.
Certainly everything's being done on their end, with our assistance to put forth the proper appeal. Again, I'm urging them to trust the process. I can't even imagine with what I know about the waivers that they don't get cleared, but honestly, with the news last week, I get a little concerned.
Yeah.
So I'm urging them to trust the process. I want to believe that the NCAA will do the right thing. And I do believe that there is some kind of time frame. I think it's a week or two. I don't know exactly off the top of my head.
So do you go forward preparing for the season as if you're not going to have them, or have those contingency plans already kind of been put in place through this whole process?
That's difficult.
Okay.
And, it's difficult because they're out there practicing every day, which is great. I mean, I can't take that away, right? They're massive pieces to our team. But we scrimmaged this past weekend without them, so we've done that a little bit. And certainly, I don't want to think of a world where they aren't cleared, because I do believe they deserve it as young people. So we're preparing as if they'll be clear, because I think they deserve it based on the guidelines and standards that have been laid out.
What can they do if they're not? I mean, can they hang a year, or do they? I know you don't want to think about it.
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, certainly we're going to wrap our arms around them regardless of the circumstances. I think they need to know that we're going to do everything in our power to support them, to do everything we can to get them on the court. I think there's a bigger picture to this. That they came to Cincinnati to be student athletes. They have careers ahead of them in basketball. Taking a year away of that they didn't choose to take away, right? They made a choice based on guidelines and standards laid out. I can't imagine how that would affect them, not just their mental health in the short term, but their careers in the long term. We're not talking about a coaching career. I'll use my own example where you can coach for the rest of your life. Playing basketball is it's got a time limit on it. Even for the people that play the longest, a short time limit. So it's hard to imagine them not being cleared. Again, not because this isn't a transfer debate. This is we gave young people guidelines. Young people made decisions based on those guidelines. They meet those guidelines. As adults, and a lot of people that consulted, they meet those guidelines. They deserve to play, and I'm going to think positively that we're going to do the right thing. I don't want to be somebody that's just bashing it. Let's do the right thing. The NCAA should clear them, and I expect to see them out there on the court this year.
Coach, how much does it help having the positional versatility that you have with additions like CJ and Seamus, and also having OD and Big Back? How much does that help with the transition to the Big 12?
Yeah, I think positional versatility is important in college basketball now. Certainly we want real size and athleticism at every position. And, I think we have the ability to roll out lineups now where we have real size and athleticism at every position, and then versatility in terms of how we play those positions. Like, we can play with 4 true perimeter players, but we still have size and athleticism. We can play with 2 true traditional big guys or post players, and then we're massive, but I think we can still get out and defend teams that are smaller. And it's not 1 or 2 guys that allow that. It's a complete roster full of guys that can slide up and down. The one guy that I think about that maybe doesn't have great size and athleticism for defensive versatility is Davion Thomas, but man, he's really fast with the ball, and he has a dimension athletically that's just different based on who he's going to play against every night. I mean, he has real ball speed and quickness. So he might be the one guy that can guard one position, but everybody else on our team is capable of guarding multiple positions.
How has it helped with guys like Rayvon Griffith and Jizzle James having as much experience around them as you have?
Having as much experience, yeah.
With all the experience you have, how has that helped with Rayvon and Jizzle James' transition to this level?
I think our young players have really benefited from being around experienced players. And everybody in our program that joined our program this offseason has benefited from being around returning players. I think those are the 2 dynamics that I'm really proud of over this offseason. Our returning, even Dan Skillings and Josh Reed, having those guys as returning players has helped all of our incoming players because they know what we do. They've been here, they know what we do, but they also understand the standard of how we do it. And they take pride in that and want to hold everybody accountable to that.
You talk about Dan Skillings there briefly. Just talk about what you've seen from him this offseason. It looks like he's put on a little bit more muscle this offseason in the weight room with Coach Rayfeld. Just talk about this offseason for him a little bit.
He looks like a sophomore. And I always say this to our players. The best thing about freshmen is they become sophomores. And I don't mean in terms of their academic standing. Like, they start playing like they're not new to college basketball. Dan looks like he understands the game at a different level now. Physically, he's taken tremendous steps forward. He's more explosive, he's stronger, he holds position better, whether it's offensively or defensively. I'm really impressed with his development. His skill set's improved. He's actually been one of our better playmakers at times from the summer on, creating offense for others with his ability to pass. And we didn't see a ton of that last year. I think we're excited about his development. Everybody knows about his ability, but his development in some of the areas that were just new to him a year ago has been significant to this point.
How do you manage that depth with having so many pieces that can help you in different positions?
How do I manage it?
Manage that depth. How do you go about managing that depth with so many guys that can contribute and help in different ways?
Well, I think one style of play. We've always tried to play with pace, but this team can play with a different kind of pace because of its depth. So we've been working on our pace of play from day one of the summer, and we are playing fast. It doesn't mean we're going to shoot bad shots quickly, but we are really playing at a ferocious pace up and down the floor. And when you do that, you can play more guys. In fact, you need to play more guys because there's more possessions. So I think one of the ways we're going to utilize that depth is to play the pace that I always wanted to play, which doesn't take away from anybody. It just adds.
Is Day-Day the fastest you've had at Cincinnati so far and getting up and down?
Comparisons can be tricky. Mike Saunders was terrific in terms of ball speed. Day-Day's right there with him. So I don't. We haven't clocked guys, that type of thing. But Day-Day has legitimate burst in ball speed. I mean, it's incredible.
You mentioned freshmen up there. How soon do you think you can get your current freshmen to mature to where they're ready come January 6th for Big 12?
Yeah, I don't want to put a date of pressure on them. I think the pressure that we put on guys is to come in and have the right approach to their work every day, their focus every day, right? Their mentality every day. And that's the pressure we're putting on our team and our players daily. I'm proud of how Rayvon and Jizzle are approaching it. And certainly Jizzle, as a freshman point guard, that's the hardest position to adjust to in college basketball. Our team needs him to adjust. He knows that. We're going to have to rely heavily on him. There may be days he feels like he's not doing well. A big picture, he's doing great. And I think if we can just keep taking steps forward week after week, I think he'll be ready to play come conference time at the level that we know he's capable of. But to try to put a date on he needs to be this by this date, that's not fair. They just got to keep working like they're working, and both of them are doing that.
So if the worst were to happen, what does that do for Sage Tolentino? How much does his role change, and could we see an uptick in playing time for him?
Sage is, you got to think of Sage as a freshman, right? He's a redshirt freshman. His improvement from our practices last year till now has been significant. I still want a heck of a lot more. He knows that, but the effort's been good. His body's changed. He's got the ability to step out and shoot the basketball from his position, which is dynamic. And so he's done some nice things here the last couple of weeks, and he's got to continue to do it.
You talk about Victor expanding his game a little bit, stepping out, taking that deep mid-range shot. Just talk about that transition this offseason, what you've seen from him in that aspect.
Well, no mid-range, okay? Threes. Yeah, I'd rather him either be at the rim or shooting threes, but we're now allowing Vic to stretch and shoot threes. People think it's just an off-season thing, and he got with the shooting coach early in the spring, worked hard on his shot the entire spring, the entire summer. We let him start actually shooting threes in our live practice play in the summer, and he had great success. But what people probably don't realize is that we started this process the off-season before. He spent the entire off-season a year ago doing the same thing, just didn't think it was the right time to let him shoot him in games. So he wasn't quite there yet, and it wasn't what our team needed. He's taken another big step forward. This has been 2 years in the making. He shot over 40% in our summer practices. He's been close to that in our preseason practices. Now that doesn't mean he'll do it in games, but I do think he's a real threat to stretch and shoot threes now.
You guys have the green light, or are there some cautions out there, or can everyone? You shoot a lot of threes. You got some pretty good shooters. I mean,
Yeah, I think
without asking you who's the best one, I mean, obviously you have a lot of guys that can knock that down.
I think it's a fair question. I think the way that we approach it is, we don't put guys in boxes. We're a development-based program, and I think if you look at our kids from one year to the next, or to the next that have been on our program, with very few exceptions, guys are improving at a really fast rate, and I'm extremely proud of that. Now, first off, they deserve the credit for the work they're putting in, but I think one thing we do is we don't put them in boxes. Like, we don't put kids in boxes and say, you can't do this, or you can only do that, especially in the summer and early in the fall in our preseason practice. We're going to let guys try to show that they worked on their games, and let them make mistakes and let them try to expand. And then as we get closer to games, we'll start to kind of whittle down and make sure guys have the right roles and define good shots and bad shots and okay shots. And obviously a great shot is a dunk, a layup, or an inside-out three for a guy that can shoot threes. But there's a lot more to it than that. And a great shot for C.J. Frederick from three may not be the same as a great shot from Vic, but we are going to allow both of them to shoot threes. And we're still working through that now, and we'll be working through that over the next month.
How much of an impact has the switch to the Big 12 as well as the addition of the Jordan brand? How much of an impact has that made on recruiting without getting into specific recruits or commits?
It's been incredibly impactful. Like Cincinnati's a national brand. This is an historic, great program. So in recruiting when I got here, we could get involved. We're recognized by anybody. Like I don't want to discount that. I mean, anybody would take our phone calls or have interest because we're Cincinnati. But the one thing we kept running into with the elite players that had other options were, man, I just don't know if I want to play in the American as opposed to a Power 5 league. And as good as the American was, and I'm not knocking the American, we kept finding that out in recruiting. Once the Big 12 news was announced, it changed our recruiting overnight, because especially the kids that we recruit into this year's team, that we're going to play on this year's team, it affected them a great deal, because they want to play in great leagues, and not only just one of the best leagues, it is the best league. So it's had a real significant impact on recruiting, for sure.
Does your scheduling play a role at all in areas you want to recruit? The Washington, D.C. game against Howard, does that play a role at all when you're looking at who you schedule?
Yeah, I think when we're scheduling, there's a lot of strategy behind scheduling. That said, you don't always get your way. I mean, I'd love, if we're going to play a road game, that we have the power to schedule. I do think there's a huge benefit to scheduling in a region that you've targeted. So, but that's not going to always be the top priority for scheduling. Shoot, sometimes scheduling is just trying to find a game, and that's certainly been the case here over the last couple of years of getting this job. It was getting around our non-conference schedule with league transitions and all kinds of other things. I'll recognize that is something, and there are other strategy parts, but some of those strategies have gone out the wayside because we just have to put together a schedule. And I'm hoping over the next couple of years we'll be able to we'll have the ability to strategize more on some of these other areas for our non-conference schedule.
I hate asking you about these what-if questions, but obviously if the two guys are eligible, it makes your job a lot easier. You've got more fouls to give. It takes weight off of Victor. It increases a lot of things for you.
Listen, Aziz Bandego played against him. I mean, he's had an elite rim protection and elite ability to cover ground defensively. And after having coached him all summer and fall, he's even better than I thought. And he actually is more versatile defensively. Like, he can switch out and guard guards. I didn't know that until we got him. Offensively, when we played against him, we knew he's one of the better vertical threats I've ever seen on a college basketball. And when I say that, I mean when he's in pick and roll or he's running the rim, his threat to catch a lob or to put pressure on the front of the rim is as good as I've ever seen on a college basketball court. And I've seen some good ones. So he has some qualities that are elite that impact both sides of the ball. We coached against Jameel Reynolds multiple times for 2 years. We knew that he is as good of a back-to-the-basket player as we have in our game now. We know it needs to be more consistent when coaching against him, but the natural ability is there. We know he's way more athletic than people realize. He's lost 40, 50 pounds. He's playing with the higher motor now. Like, he has rim protection. Same thing we talked about with Aziz. He's a guy that you can play offense through. He's in the post, in the pocket. He even can step out and shoot threes, which we didn't know. So I'm saying all that about both of these guys because anytime you add guys with that ability that are improving, they're going to impact the success of your team. It'd be foolish of me not to recognize that.
Kind of getting back to Jizzle, what has he shown you in his demeanor about his ability to kind of roll with the punches of what might be a rough first year, but that could set him up for years down the road where he could lead your program at that point guard position?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I'll tell you guys about Jizzle. Bearcat fans are going to love Jizzle James. He's easy to love because he plays so freaking hard. And he just keeps coming. And he's the type of kid, and Rayvon's very similar, and we have others that are similar too, but Jizzle's the type of kid you have to pull him out of the gym. I mean, hours upon hours upon hours. His threshold for work, his willingness to try to figure this out, his will is as strong as anybody his age that I've seen, and when he plays hard, it's easy sometimes. When he makes a mistake, it's easy not to get as frustrated because he's playing and trying so damn hard. Mm-hmm. I think Cincinnati fans will really resonate with the way he plays the game because of his approach every day, and I don't see it changing. It's real. He's going to figure it out, and I think we need to be patient with him early in the year. The way we're playing, it's hard for a point guard. Right, so I'm hard on point. I'm probably harder on point guards than any position on the floor. I know that, but I also think because of that, when they get it, he's going to play at an incredible level and show the world who he is. We got to be patient. Let him play through some mistakes. I promise you, I'll be hard as heck on him, but he's going to be just fine. I think people are going to be really excited when they see him play. I think Jizzle James in January will be a heck of a lot better than Jizzle James in October.
Do you think that standard has kind of been set by his dad, obviously that professional standard that he wants to reach?
Yeah. Jizzle has he has a different approach.
Okay.
It's just different. And I think when people see him play, they'll understand what I'm saying. But it's the stuff that's happening. I mean, David DeJulius had a different approach. Like, he'd show up for practice at 6. We had some 6 a.m. We do some stuff like that. We had a 6 a.m. practice. You show up at 5:15 to have your coaches meeting on the court, and David DeJulius is in a full sweat already. And you're going, that's pretty different, and it was real. He did it all the time. Jizzle has that kind of an approach. Obviously, now 18 years old. He's obviously been raised the right way. I'm sure getting to know his father, that his father made it very clear to him, if this is the path that you want to go down, this is how you approach it. Obviously, his father's a Hall of Fame running back, so there's a ton of credit given there. There's also a ton of credit given to the coaches around him, and a ton of credit given to Jizzle, because he's put the work in, and I'd be shocked if he doesn't continue to.
You made it a priority earlier, saying that you want John, Odie, and Vic to experience this with you guys, because they were ones who were on the original team when you were hired. Just talk about what this moment has been like. I know it's just been a short couple hours, couple days. What has this process been like for you guys here at Big 12 Media Days?
This is first class. I mean, I don't know what it'll look like on social media or when you guys post stuff, but walking around this arena, seeing the way the Big 12 handles everything, this is absolutely first class. Like, honestly, I'm blown away. The neatest part for me is watching our players experience it. And they represent our university the right way. They represent our program the right way. But they're also having fun here today, going through, enjoying this. And I think our players know that the Big 12 is the Big 12. That it's the best basketball league in America, and that's exciting. But for these 3 guys to actually experience, some of the things that this league has to offer today, that's been a need for me. And I'm glad those 3 who deserve to be here have been able to experience it.
Uniform reveal last night. How much of a say did you have in the design of those uniforms, or how involved were you with it?
I'm by no means going to ever take credit for anything, because this Jordan brand thing is so neat. I think that, listen, the Jordan brand is the best brand in sports. We know that. But it's so much deeper at Cincinnati because of the history and the nostalgia. Like the colorway. Like, there's so many things. I think the brands align, like, in a deep way. I'm never going to sit here and take credit for it. There's a lot of people that had a lot to do with making it happen. And I'm so thankful and grateful to all of them. That said, yes, I have my hands deeply on anything Jordan brand, okay? Because I care about it. I think it matters. It doesn't matter as much as the people. It doesn't matter as much as the way that we play or the way that we carry ourselves. The stuff that matters most still matters most, but it matters, and it matters to me. And so, yeah, I had my hand on it. And I think trying to find a way to design jerseys that bring back the essence of what we all know is the Jordan jerseys from the past, but with a modern twist to them. I think that's what we were looking for. I think we did that in some ways, and I think they're going to get better and better, because you got to remember the Jordan brand deal happened so late. The lead times for ordering and designing, like the hardest year for Jordan brand is going to be year 1. After we get through the first year, it's just going to keep getting better and better. So I expect us to take steps there, and we have other jerseys to unveil as well, which is kind of cool. It won't just be these.
Do you have a favorite retro shoe while we're on the topic?
Yeah. There's different circumstances for different ones. So for just casual, like going to work or coaching in practice or something like today, I love the OG One Lows, mainly because they're just the most comfortable ones on my feet. Not for any other reason. I like them, but they're comfortable. If it's the 3s are my favorites. I just love the 3s. Anything 3s is good. I really like the 4s. I really like the 11s. But if you made me rank, I'd say 3s number 1, OG One Lows number 2, because they're just the best for me on a day-to-day basis.
What you got on for today?
OG One Lows.
Coach, what's it like, just with everything external recruiting-wise now, navigating that as a coach? Like, you're not only recruiting what's on the court, there's all these other factors to take into account. What is that like for you as a coach now?
Yeah, our jobs in college basketball in the last 4 years have changed so significantly. I think what hasn't changed is all the stuff that we used to have to do. That stuff still matters. It's still a large part of our job. So we didn't lose anything. It's all the other things that we've added, right? With the transfer season in the spring, with NIL, among a ton of actually the emergence of social media. I mean, there's so many changes that we've added, and all the old stuff still matters. I don't complain about it. I think we've got to keep trying to evolve, to be on the cutting edge, to still focus on the things that really matter, and not focus on the things that really don't. But to not recognize that it's changed a lot would be crazy. I think anybody in my position, all my colleagues, it's changed a great deal.
What's been the biggest takeaway you guys as a staff and a program have been able to take away from an event like this here in Kansas City?
Well, so I've been talking to you guys all day. I haven't processed it all yet, taken anything away. No, I just think that the most important thing is for our players to be able to go back. It gives a real feeling that it's close to being here. You know, it does. It adds just a realistic feeling that in a very short period of time we're taking the floor, in a very short time taking the floor in a Big 12 game. I think our players back home will be following all this on social media today, and following their friends and teammates. It'll make it feel real for them.
With your coaching staff, that's like what is it like for you having? I mean, everybody brings something up since your staff. You had some continuity. You've added guys like Drew. How do you feel about the guys around you?
I am so proud of our staff. This is as good of a staff to this stage as I've ever been a part of, which is not saying anything about any other staff. It's just the combination of our group and how everybody works together. The other aspect that I'm really proud of is the continuity that we've had. I mean, I have one of the best assistants in all of college basketball, Chad Dollar. I mean, it surprises me that he doesn't get more recognition. I mean, in every facet of it, experience. He's been so many different places. He's been through ups and downs. He has great perspective. He's a great teacher. He really cares about the right things, the kids, the people. He's an elite recruiter. I mean, but I've had him now for 2 years. We've been together. So now he actually understands our program and what we value, and we're aligned. So it's not just that we have great assistants. It's like we have the right people in the right positions, that we understand who we are together. So it's the combination of those things. And I could go through each guy on my staff, but we're versatile. I mean, everybody brings something very different. I think we all understand our roles differently this year, and it's very clear, and everybody's working well together. So, you know, Drew and Josh, who've been added over the last year at different points, they've really brought a ton to our staff, because not just because they're really good, they are really good, because they've added different dynamics to our staff that enhance everybody, including me.
Coach, you obviously have a really close relationship with Coach Roy Williams. How much of an impact has he had on you during this transition and this off season?
You know, he has such an impact on me in everything that I do. And I mean, honestly, certainly in basketball, and sometimes in other ways. I mean, there's been no major life decision that I've ever made without consulting my parents first, and then he'd be the next call, right? I have great parents, and he'd be the next call. And so everything I've dealt with since the time I left North Carolina, he's been a huge part of my life, and certainly can relate to coaching at this level as good as anybody, and certainly coached in this league. You know, and I'm sure the league's very different. But yeah, I talk to him all the time. He's actually going to come up in a couple weeks and spend a couple days with us in our practice. He was supposed to come next week, and something popped up, but I think he's going to get to us here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, him and his wife. And shoot, I might, if I can get compliance okay, I might just let him coach the damn team. That'd probably be the best way to prepare for the season. But he's been great.
Anything else? All right.
Thank you.